We're getting a first look at how the two leading candidates for governor match up against each other. A recent poll from Public Policy Polling shows Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham leading Republican nominee Mark Ronchetti, 45% for the governor to 42% for Mr. Ronchetti. Libertarian Karen Bedonie holds about 9%, and 5% of voters say they're not sure. I want to talk about that 5% here in this discussion. Now, Andy, that's a lot closer than most people would have guessed this early on. Should the governor be concerned, or is this just early numbers and early days here?
That's a good question, actually. I was just thinking the other day about how, and maybe it's just my memory is not serving me well, but it seems like it's gotten ramped up really quickly, right? Yeah. We've still got a number of months before things are technically supposed to start heating up, but and maybe it's those numbers. We don't know what internal polling looks like, and so I guess that's what my first observation is, that right out of the gate they're neck and neck, and it's just so I'm kind of wondering what we're going to see in the coming months as things shift.
Good point there. You know, Merritt, when you think about it, if it had shown, say, like a 10-point gap for the governor, 12, 13, whatever, that's one thing. This close, I got to think the Ronchetti people are thrilled to have the very first poll out of the gate, a public poll, having it be this close. What does that do to a campaign, considering his history, and of course?
Well, let's look back at the primary. Ronchetti shifted focus a couple weeks before the primary, which up until then, right as early voting started, had been who is more loyal to Trump and who's going to do more about border security. Right. And suddenly he started running against the governor.
Yes.
And that was a noted shift. And he decided that he had already won the primary and he was going to start running a general election campaign. And that's how he finished out the primary. And so I think he positioned himself and started the move to the center, away from the hard right, and started campaigning against the governor early, while he was still really commanding airtime and the interest of all voters. And that was also, of course, the governor, she started those really smart 15-second, almost public service announcements about the great things she'd done for the state. And so I feel that Ronchetti has answered her point for point really effectively. So no, I'm not surprised, but let's also remember he finished better than anyone thought he would in his Senate race as a relative newcomer. I mean, when you run for your first office with no political experience whatsoever, no managerial experience whatsoever, and you run for U.S. Senator, that's a pretty big move.
Yeah.
So I would say people want to call on his experience and say he's a political neophyte. I think the amount of money he raised and his strong showing in his first Senate campaign makes him ready to take on the governor.
Just as an interesting point there for folks that might not recall, Democrat Bernard Lujan won with 51.7% to 45.6% for Mr. Ronchetti, a lot closer than folks might have guessed at the time. Laura, interesting, this approval ratings, I'm always kind of this approval-disapproval thing. The governor's showing 48% approval, 48% disapproval. Does that mean anything in the long haul, or as we get closer to Election Day? What does that actually mean when you hear people disapprove of somebody's performance?
Well, I think it's important to remember that approval, disapproval rates, they're a point in time, right?
Yeah.
They're definitely a point in time, as is the public poll that we just talked about.
Yep.
New Mexico elections are always close, at least since I've been paying attention to elections. New Mexico always seems to be extremely close. And so as we get closer to Election Day, we're going to see a lot of things shifting, but I don't think anybody should be taking this one for granted. That's the worst thing the Democrats can do. That's the worst thing that Michelle Lujan Grisham can do. And I think that she's definitely, she's got a lot of fight in her. She's a seasoned professional. She's definitely very good on the stump. She's also very good in a debate. And she's had a lot of opportunities to debate real issues in the many races that she's run in and won. And so I think she's going to be very well prepared. I agree with Merritt that she was very effective with the short, sort of almost PSA-like ads that she did leading up to the election. Rather than staying out of it completely, I should say, leading up to the primary, rather than stay out completely, she took the opportunity to introduce herself in a positive way and really speak to the average New Mexican. And she also has some very good positives. So, traditionally you see the first few ads are supposed to be introductory ads. What are you about? You know, what are you bringing to the table? Why are you running for this position? That sort of thing. And then the next few ads, often you have like the Tom Romero ad, former Bernalillo police chief Tom Romero, who's talking about Ronchetti's lack of experience and that he's a weatherman.
Mm-hmm.
And so he basically that, you know, those sorts of ads then come next traditionally where you have somebody sort of vouching for you. So we can expect that Ronchetti probably will have something similar with a high profile person talking about his, you know, him being the best person. And then you start to see the negative attack ads.
Right.
But in New Mexico, we seem to, you know, we don't necessarily always follow that cadence. Right. And so I think it's going to get ugly quickly, like it has in every other election we've seen recently. And even though it seems like right now when we're in the middle of summer, it seems like a long way away. It's only 4.5 months away.
Right.
That really is not very long to do all the money raising, to do all the organizing, you know, to do everything that needs to happen to prepare for that election day and that election period, which, as we know, is longer than just election day. So we're going to start to see a lot more of the negative stuff coming quickly. And I hope that we can see some very good debates and some real issues discussed from both sides.
The debate should be fascinating. There's no doubt, and I'm glad two of you brought that up. You know, Andy, on the aforementioned TV ads, not necessarily the ones introducing the governor, reintroducing, but attacking Mr. Ronchetti for something he seems kind of proud of, which is his lack of experience. You know, Mr. Trump started this trend, of course, by running and winning on being an outsider. You know, but as was mentioned by Laura, the governor has a long list of accomplishments, all of which are a product of knowing how to govern. I'm curious how the public might, through your eyes, see this idea of governing versus just being a personality and having that be enough to take you over the finish line here.
Yeah, I think it's obviously time will tell, but there's seems to be a trend all over the place, and maybe I'm missing some Democratic candidates, but you've got Dr. Oz running in Pennsylvania. The gubernatorial race in Arizona is seeing a Trump-endorsed former newscaster, right? So it's sort of this recognizable face,
right.
Outsider. You know, I'm going to come in and clean things up. I think we've seen some successes in our history, our country's history of that, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see where this all goes if we're going to see the pendulum swing the other way and say, no more outsiders. We want people that actually understand running an administration.
I've had others say that very same thing, that fever is going to break at some point, and at the very end, you got to figure out who can put together a government that's actually fairly complicated and be the leader of that. Merritt, interestingly, I'm still on this weatherman thing, the trusted weatherman deal, but again, is he vulnerable on climate change and wildfires? And I'm wondering if the governor has an opening here, because Mr. Ronchetti has not exactly been truthful about this idea of climate change. He's disputed it. Is this a viable position for the governor to go after Mark Ronchetti on?
Well, he certainly has gotten backed into a corner in primaries, and that's a problem. For Republicans is the orthodoxy requirement is so strict in the Republican primary that you really can't offer your own opinion on anything. And I think the governor certainly would be remiss not to point that out. It's old. I mean, the comments are old because he did then run ads talking about himself as a scientist, and he did correct the record somewhat. He's absolutely willing to flip-flop. He's demonstrated that. You know, he's a Trump denier. No, he's the biggest Trump supporter ever.
Right.
Well, which is he? He's certainly willing to say what it takes to win elections. And that may become an Achilles heel for him if the governor's campaign people are smart about it. And I think that's possibly his biggest weakness and his, as I said before, Achilles heel. However, you know, the governor, the record, she lowered taxes. I mean, she moved to the center in the session. She lowered taxes, but really not in a meaningful way. The gross receipts tax cut the Social Security, the tax on Social Security has been something the state's been screaming for a long time.
That's right.
And so I feel like had to happen. I feel her advocacy with the wildfires has been good, but the statement she just made about not accepting migrants, I think the Journal had an excellent editorial about it, really political showmanship.
Mm-hmm.
CYFD, if Ronchetti does not hit her on CYFD, he's making a huge mistake.
Right.
So I think the governor has her own vulnerabilities here.
I'm going to ask the guys in the booth to steal me one more minute here. I want to ask Laura about this real quick, Laura, if we could. The governor holds about a 64%, Hispanic and Latino vote as it stands now. I mean, that's a big hill to climb for Mark Ronchetti if you can't get the Hispanic and Latino vote here. Does this bode well for the governor?
I think it absolutely does. I think that, New Mexico has been very interesting when it comes to Hispanic voters.
Yeah.
When you look at the race when Susana Martinez was elected, a lot of people that traditionally voted Democrat in northern New Mexico, it's not that they voted for her necessarily, they just didn't vote. Something didn't connect with them when it came to Diane Dennis. And so many of them, you saw an undervote in that election.
Mm-hmm.
And, people got comfortable with Susana Martinez being the first Hispanic governor of New Mexico, a female governor. And the Republican was not sort of a huge thing. It was politically, but I think in terms of identity, there was a source of pride there as well. I think you see here, Michelle Lujan Grisham comes from a very, Hispanic, long-standing roots in New Mexico, the Lujan family, also Republican ties.
Yep.
I mean, not completely Democrat if you look back at her family history. But I think there's an enormous sense of pride there in terms of support among Hispanic voters. And so provided that they show up, and that's always the issue, right? You want to make sure that there's a concentrated effort to make sure that folks show up and that they are taken seriously, that their issues, their concerns day to day are being addressed. And I think that's definitely part of the strategy that she will incorporate and that she will do well. She's enjoyed their support for a long time.
Sure.
And Ronchetti's going to have a hard time breaking any of that group. I mean, it's not a monolithic voting bloc, but it's still going to be very difficult for him to peel off very many votes from that.
Good points there. Thank you once again to our panelists. Stay with New Mexico in Focus leading up to the general election for all the important developments in all the key races. The panel will join us one more time in about 10 minutes to talk about new Attorney General probe into a Chaves County police shooting. But first, the impact of wildfires and now flooding in northern New Mexico. The consecutive disasters have destroyed infrastructure along the area's acequias, which are vital to the landscape and the livelihoods of the people who live there. The executive director of the New Mexico Acequia Association, Paula Garcia, spoke with senior producer Lou DeVizio, about the struggles her community is facing.